Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I have gone through our hardneck garlic bed and I have picked all of the scapes that are ready, and this is what I ended up with. So I'm going to show you how I cook these up. And if you're not familiar with what garlic scapes are, basically they're like the flower stalk of the garlic plant. So you can see on each of these there's like a little, actually a flower bud forming at the end of these. And like most things that go to seed and flower, they form this like thicker stalk down the center of the garlic bulb. And this is something that only hardneck types of garlic produce. I'm not really sure why, but softneck garlics don't produce the scapes. So if you're looking to grow scapes, you want to grow hardneck varieties. And these are always a really fun little bonus crop that we get to harvest and eat in the spring, because I don't think you can get these like ever at the grocery store. And the only way you can really eat them and try them out is by either finding them at a farmer's market or growing them yourself. Obviously, we prefer to grow them ourselves, and the nice thing about it is that you not only get the scapes around this time of year, it's like mid-May right now, but you still get to harvest the actual garlic bulbs later, and it's actually beneficial to harvest off these scapes off the plants because cutting off the scapes helps the plant to direct all of its energy into creating a larger garlic bulb. So yeah, it's just a fun thing that we're able to harvest this time of year, and I'm going to show you how I cook it today. And basically, I just like to treat my garlic scapes as if they're a vegetable. And usually what I do is I just stir fry them, maybe with some other vegetables or with a protein. And it's just like a really quick, easy way to cook them up. But I know a lot of people like to make garlic scape pesto. You can also dehydrate it and make kind of like an oniony, garlicky powder out of it. So there are definitely uses for it. I like to stir fry it because I really like the texture and the flavor. The flavor obviously kind of tastes like garlic. It's a little bit milder though, so it's not just like biting into a whole garlic clove. And the texture is kind of like a firm green bean or maybe like asparagus spear. I think they're really nice, and I just like to eat them really simply like that, so you can really enjoy all the flavor and the texture of it. So yeah, this is the harvest that I ended up with going through my bed today, but this is only the first garlic scape harvest, and I've just gone through and picked through what looked ready. And I like to pick them when they have sort of made like one of these little loop-de-loops like they are here. And then I just cut them at the base of where the thicker stalk starts. So this is what they look like, and I probably only picked like half of the garlic scapes because the other ones are not ready yet. We usually get like 2 or 3 harvests that are about this size throughout the spring. So I'll probably pick again in like a week and then get the very last ones the week after that. So yeah, it's just like a nice little bonus vegetable. So I've got the harvest, I'm gonna bring it inside, and we're gonna do some cooking today. So like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing a stir fry with the garlic scapes. And to go along with that, I am going to also be making just like a basic winter melon soup, the one that I've shown many, many times. But it was time to open up a new winter melon, so I thought I would show you that. This is one of the winter melons we grew last year. I'm using a cloth to pick it up because they do have kind of prickly hairs on them that are kind of painful if you get them into your skin. So I'm gonna rub that off in a second, but this is what it looks like. We have 3 winter melons left that we harvested last year, and this is one of them. This is actually the smallest one of what we have. The last 2 that we have are, I think, the biggest winter melons that we harvested last year, the ones that are 20 pounds and up, maybe 25 pounds, I forget how big they were. But since we are getting into spring and it's been a while since we've harvested those, I figured that it was time to start trying to eat them up a little quicker. They're still looking great. They have preserved really nicely. You can see that this one actually has a white powdery coating on it. It's just a different variety of winter melon. The other one does not have this white coating. It's more of just a glossy green. But yeah, this is one of the varieties that we grew, and for this variety the powdery white coating is what helps it to stay preserved, and it's still just looking very perfect. So I'm going to cut into this, and I'm going to cook some of it for the soup for today. The rest of it, as usual, I'm going to freeze into some containers. And I think the best way that you're supposed to wipe off this coating and get rid of some of those little prickly hairs is you're supposed to take a dry paper towel or newspaper and wipe that before you wet it. So that's what I'm going to do, and then try and wash some of this off, and then I'm going to cut into it and we'll see what it looks like inside. So this is what I ended up with after cutting the winter melon. I have this bowl, which I'm going to use for the soup today. All the scraps are going to go to the chickens, and then I have these 8 containers that are all going to go into the freezer for a later time. Now I'm going to prep the garlic scapes, and I just have to cut these into bite-sized pieces, and then I also like to cut this very tip end off where it starts to get a little pointier because it can be a little bit fibrous. So I usually cut it like kind of above where that flower bud is. And then the rest of the stalk we're going to use, we're just going to get rid of just that very tip part. To prep my garlic scapes, I'm cutting them into lengths about 3 inches long. Then I'm also prepping some other vegetables. I have some asparagus that's also from the garden that I'm chopping up, as well as some onion. And then for some protein, I'm using these thin fish cakes. I buy these at the Korean grocery store. So those are all my vegetables prepped for the stir fry, and now I'm going to make a quick stock for the soup. I'm using some kelp and some dried anchovies, and in my pot I used about 6 or 7 anchovies, and I'm just removing the heads and the guts of the anchovies. And that just has to boil for about 30 minutes to make a really quick, easy broth. And then I'm preparing a sauce for my stir fry. This is a really basic sauce that I use for really any vegetable that you want to stir fry. It's really nice. It just like enhances whatever you're cooking and is really easy to whip up. First I have about a teaspoon of cornstarch, then I put a teaspoon to a tablespoon of soy sauce, and then a tablespoon of oyster sauce. Lastly, I just add some water to thin this out. I start with a couple of tablespoons, but I usually add more as needed when I'm actually doing the stir frying. I think in total I ended up using about a 1/4 cup of water. After about 30 minutes, the anchovy and kelp stock has finished boiling, so I'm just going to fish out all of the solids and just use that same pot to make my soup. I'm putting in that bowl of winter melon that I had previously chopped up, and I also added in a carrot as well, and then I'm going to add some salt to season this. This just has to boil until the winter melon gets kind of like translucent, which usually only takes about like 15 minutes. So when that's almost done, I can start making my stir fry, and that's gonna go really quickly. First, I have a 12-inch cast iron skillet. I'm adding some vegetable oil, and I'm adding in first my onions and my garlic scapes. The garlic scapes have a little bit of a heartier texture, and I find that they usually take longer to cook than other vegetables do, so I always make sure I add them in the beginning. Adding a little bit of salt to season, but not too much because the sauce will also be salty, so I'm making sure not to oversalt here. Then after a few minutes, I can add in my fish cakes, let those stir fry for a minute, then I'm going to add in my asparagus last. When everything is pretty much all cooked through, I am going to add in my sauce for the stir fry, and this usually has to be mixed up again right before adding to the pan because the cornstarch likes to settle on the bottom. So I'm just mixing that up and then adding it to the pan, and since the pan is hot, that cornstarch will immediately react with it and thickens up with the heat. So sometimes I just need to add a little bit more water just to loosen it up. And I ended up adding a couple more tablespoons of water, and this just makes like a really nice kind of like a brown gravy that coats the vegetables really nicely, makes them very glossy, adds some flavor, and it's just like a great all-purpose sauce that you can use for anything. So I make this sauce all the time whenever I'm stir-frying vegetables. Here is the finished stir fry and the meal. You can see how beautiful and glossy those vegetables look. The garlic scapes have softened up really nicely. We have our winter melon soup, and then I just served this with some rice and some kimchi on the side. And again, the garlic scapes still have a really nice texture. They're a little bit more firm than a green bean, and I think that they just taste so good. They have a mild garlic flavor, which is really nice because you don't really have to add a lot of seasonings to them. They kind of like are the seasoning for themselves, and I just love preparing them this way and enjoying them really simply. So that's how I cook my garlic scapes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next one.